This is part 3 of a 3-part set of tutorials about making some glitter and metallic textures and then making them into styles. In the first 2 tutorials I made 10 glitter textures, or that might have been 12 actually, and we're going to be making 10 metallic styles in this one, and then to round off I'm going to show you how to make those textures into styles that can be used in Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer. Now the metallic textures, there is even more leeway in how these are sort of will look and finish than the glitter ones did, because where there are no sort of real settings, it's more done by what you want, so you can follow closely, but not necessarily will yours be exactly the same as mine, but you will get the idea. So I'm going to start with a new document, and I'm going to leave it at the 2500 by 2500 pixels, and there's going to be a lot of to-ing and fro-ing and going backwards and forwards, but basically we're going to make all the metallic styles from this one document. So the first thing I want to do is to add a pixel layer, and then I'm going to flood fill this with a color. So I'll pick the flood fill tool, and I'm just going to click on this white foreground color twice to get the color chooser here. And the color I'm going to pick it's 186 in the red, 97 in the green, and 12 in the blue, which gives you this sort of orangey copper color. If you want to go for the hex number, it's BA610C. So I'll just close that and click in here to give me this orange color. So once I had that done, I'm now going to add another pixel layer, and to this I'm going to add a linear gradient. Now the gradient tool is the one below the flood fill tool. Right, click on that. At the moment it says none up here at the top, but I'm going to come down to linear. Now you could come diagonally, you could do it vertically, but I'm going to do a horizontal one across the center roughly. So I'm going to hold down the shift key just so it stays straight, and I'm just going to click and drag the gradient line across the page there. Now at the moment all there is the different color nodes at each end and the point in the middle where you can move the gradient. But I'm going to add 2 more gradient nodes to this line, one being in that dead center point. So I'm just going to click on that point, and then it will add 2 slider points here that is halfway between these nodes. So I'm going to add another node there, and then another node there. So I have 5 gradient points. You can add more, add less, it's totally up to you how you want to do this. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to click on the first node on the left, and I'm going to make this 60% grey, black I should say. Now if you come up to the swatches and the greys tab, you have the various degrees of black going all the way from black down to white, and if you put the cursor over each one it will tell you what these are. So this one here is 60% grey, so that will make that node 60% grey. I'm then going to just click on this node to make this the one that is being picked, and I'm going to make that one white. This next one here, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to make that 60% grey. This next one, I'm going to click on that one. I'm going to make that one white. And this last one, I'm just going to leave it at the default setting. I don't know what shade of grey this is, but it is slightly lighter than 60%. It's probably somewhere down here in 45 or 40% grey, but I'm just going to leave that one as it is. So this at this point is where you can move these line sort of sliders left and right to alter how the gradient is working between each node. So you could make it a smaller white line here or a bigger white line. It's really up to you and your personal choice, but I'm going to go with making a thinner white streak here and maybe a slightly wider one there. So if I come off of this tool now, you can see that sort of gradient going from grey into white, into darker grey, back into white and back over to grey again. Now what I will do, just for sake of remembering which one is which, I'm going to rename this one linear. You don't have to rename them, it doesn't really matter at this point, but this is just for my personal use. So what I would do now, if this was me, I would come to File and export this in whatever folder you have set up for this, and I'd name it like metallic number 1. So we have a silver version. So next I want to do is change the blending mode of this linear layer, and I'm going to change it to multiply. So you have one version of this in the gold color. So I would now export this one and call that metallic number 2. I'll then change the blending mode again and change it to overlay, export this as metallic number 3. Now there are other blending modes you could pick that may work just as well, but they are the main. Overlay and multiply were the best two, and like normal for the grey color, silver color. Screen might work, but I didn't like it, so I didn't save one using screen, but there are others that may work to your taste. So I'll leave that one on overlay for the minute. So just from that one file and changing blending modes and what have you, we now have 3 metallic textures. So what I'm doing is I'm going to hide that linear layer. I'm going to click on the bottom pixel layer, and I'm going to add another pixel layer above that, and I'm going to come back to the gradient tool, but this time rather than linear I'm going to go with radial, and as I've got snapping on, if you come to the center point you should get this green and red line showing you where the center point is, and I'm just going to click on there and drag outwards to one of the corners. Doesn't really matter which one. I'm not going to go right to the corner, but roughly to about there. And I'm going to change the color of this to 70% black, which is that one there. Just make this one should be white, but I'll just make sure. Yes, it is white. and then you can move the middle slider in or out and to get whichever style you want, but I'm going to sort of come in quite close, not right to the center, but have this nice white circle center point. So I'll come off of that tool, and I'm just going to rename this one Radial, and I would export this one as metallic number 4, and then I can change the blending mode of this. Now the one I found best for this was soft light, but again you can pick others, it's also what works best, but I found, for me personally, I quite like soft light, so I would save that one and call it metallic number whatever we're up to, 5 or 6, I'm losing track at the moment. So we had that many different metallic ones still from the same document. So moving on, so what I'll do now is I will hide this radial layer. So we've gone back to just being able to see the bottom solid color, and I'm going to bring back the linear layer, unhide it, and what I'm going to do is put this back onto normal blending mode. So we're back with the silver version, and then I'm going to right click that and I'm going to put merge visible. So it will put at the top of the pile a single layer that has both that linear layer, well really just that linear layer, because that's all you can see at this present moment in time. Now to this I'm going to add noise and then some motion blur. So first we're going to come up to filter, noise, add noise. I'm going to have 100% intensity, uniform and monochromatic. Click apply, and then filter, blur, motion blur. I'm going to have 100 pixel radius, and I'm going to leave the rotation at 0. Click apply. Now what this does is give you this sort of lined effect like it was a sheet of metal. The only trouble with motion blur is it doesn't really work so well at the edges, which is why I made this a visible merged layer. Because if I come to the move tool, I can just click and drag the edges out slightly to lose that bad edge there, and then I can just export this as the next metallic number 6, I think it is. So this is where we're going to start repeating myself a bit here, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete that merge layer. You could hide it, but it's just as easy to delete it. So I'm back on my linear layer. Now I'm going to come to my multiply, right click that, do a merge visible, and then filter, noise, add noise, apply, filter, blur, motion blur, apply, come to the move tool, just drag it out slightly, left and right, and export this as the next metallic number. So then I would delete this and then change this to overlay and repeat the process of adding noise, adding motion blur, moving out the sides and saving it as the next metallic option. So you're going to be having each metallic option without the sort of grainy effect and with the grainy effect. So once you've done the grainy effect on all the linear versions, you can hide that, bring back the radial one, it's already on soft light, so I'll do it with the soft light first. So it's basically just doing the same thing. Right click that, merge visible, add noise, add motion blur, increase the size slightly, and then export as your next option. Once you've done that, you can delete that, and then change that back to normal to get the silver version, and add the noise, add the motion blur, increase the size slightly, and you will have yet another metallic version of a texture. So I've tried to speed this up by not showing you every step of each version, but I'm sure you get the idea that you just keep making a merged version of each type so that you then can add the noise and the motion blur. So in the end you should end up with about 10 metallic textures. I mean, obviously you can make more. You could start off with a linear one that only has 3 lines on it, or like I said, you could have it coming diagonally and have the lines going this way and make all sorts of different versions. But I'm just going to make those 10 metallic ones and the 12 glitter ones which I made previously. So I'm going to sort of reset all this, and then I'll come back and show you how to make styles. So let me just pause for a second. Okay, I've reset Affinity Photo. Now I'm going to make some styles out of all the textures that I've made in the 3 videos. Now the styles tab is over here with the layers adjustment effects tabs. So I'll click on that. By default you will get these 6 styles, but you can download or make many more of your own. As you can see, I've made quite a few, and these are the ones that I made from the Creative Fabrica ones, which I mentioned in the first video. So let me just go back to default options. So first thing you need to do is to make yourself a category to put these new styles into. So over here in this little square up here is the menu. So if you click on that, you can do add styles category, and it will call it unnamed, or in my case unnamed 2, because I already have an unnamed file. And then you just want to rename that, because I'm sure you don't want it called unnamed. So you click that menu button again and then rename category, and I'll call this glitter and metallic icon, and click OK. As you can see, the name has changed to what I named it to. So now I'm going to leave it on that, so any styles I make will automatically be installed into the currently open category. So now on to making the styles. Now you can make styles out of any textures that you download or you make yourself, and to do this, first of all you're going to need a new document, and as I know all my documents are, in this particular case, are 2000 by 500 by 2000 by 500, I'm going to keep that size, and you will need to draw a rectangle over that area, and it doesn't really matter what color it's set, but by default it should be white. And then you click on the gradient tool, and where it says solid, you click on the downward arrow. If you come down to bitmap, it will look for, or it will give you the navigation thing to find where you've saved your textures. And as you can see, I have the 12 glitter textures and the 10 metallic textures, which I made over these 3 videos. So I'm going to pick on glitter number 1 and then just click open, and it will install that bitmap image into that square that we have made. Now if I just right click this now, one of the options is create style. Just have to wait a little while and that style will appear there. So if you then click on this and come back to bitmap, it will bring back the navigation option, so pick number 2. And once you have that, again just right click, create style, and then it's just a case of a lot of repeating. Come back, click on bitmap, pick the next one, and then once you've got it installed, just come down to create style. So I'm going to pause this here while I do all of these, so next time I come back you will see that all of these are now made. Okay, so far I have made 21 of the styles. I've just got one more to go, so I'll just click on this again, click on bitmap, and the last one is this one here, open, and then just right click and create style. And now I should have 22 different styles. So I don't need this anymore. I can just close it down, and then we can just show you how to use this. But first of all, if you wanted to rename these, I'm not going to bother, but if you wanted to, you can right click on a certain style, click on rename, and then give it a new name. But I'll just cancel that for the moment. So I'll just call them, leave them called style 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 22. So let me just open a new document. This time I'll make it A4 and click OK. And these do show up better on a black background, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a layer and flood fill that with black, and then I'm going to just start some text, and we will just call this, just change the color of that to white so it stands out. There we go. Glitter, and that's only 1T. There we go. Just use the move tool to just nudge that over. Come back to the text tool. So what I can do is I can just highlight the G, for example, and pick one of these styles, and I could pick a different one for each letter or a different one for each word. Let's try a metallic one on this one. So So as you can see, you've got the different styles here. You can do a whole word in the same style. Let's try that one. Some will work better on different objects than others. Let's go with that one. And the last one, we'll go with a glitter option. There we go. So as you can see, it's quite easy to use the styles once you've made them. The making of them is a bit slightly boring if you've got a lot to do like I had here. 22 is a bit time consuming, and you can easily lose track of which ones you've done and which ones you haven't. So basically that is the end of the tutorials, or all three tutorials, and I freely admit they're not necessarily brilliant glitter or metallic textures, but it does give you a starting point to try and work out how better to do a glitter or metallic texture to make styles of, and you should go ahead and make hundreds and thousands of different ones in the same way. So thank you for watching any or all three of these videos, and goodbye. And quickly, before you stop watching this, I forgot to mention that I'm going to be saving this category so I can export the styles category, and I will make them downloadable from either the Fans of Serif Software Facebook group or the Affinity Designer and Photo Facebook group. And if you download them from those two groups, you can then just use the same menu to import the styles, and it will import them, and you can use them or not. That is up to you. If you don't belong to Facebook and you want to have copies of these, you could always email me or leave a message with your email address on the YouTube description comment page, and I can email them to you. So goodbye.